Hello, 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 hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to CTO Talks. This is going to be a first. I am seeing, so bear with me. We have a really great guest today, and hopefully we have a lot of fun today. We're taking advantage of the props. We got a golf cart. Why not take it, right? If nobody laughs, I got golf clubs here, okay? So. Please welcome Harsh Murari, CTO of Visionify. And he will do a lot better job than I can when it comes to introducing himself. So let's give him some time to introduce himself. And thank you very much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I hope you guys can all hear me. My name is Harsh Murari. I've been in Colorado from 2006 now. I worked at Qualcomm as an embedded engineer. After that, I think from 2017, I've been working as a CTO for Visionify. And our company primarily focuses on computer vision related solutions. So it's kind of adjacent to AI. And we work on workplace safety, so manufacturing industries and warehousing and things like that, and making sure that employees are safe and protected using the power of computer vision. So that's what I do. We have a team here in Denver. It's a small team. We also have a team in our offshore offices in Hyderabad, India, and I'm excited to answer any questions you have. I also have my family here with me today. My wife, Maria, and my kids, Ritu and Rohan, are here today, so I'm excited that they're getting to see their dad in the hot seat or in a golf cart. Either way, it's a fun thing, so yeah, let's have fun.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Also, it's amazing that you brought your family. Tip my hat off to you.
Awesome.
So today's topic is about AGI. How about you bring us into that, right, and give us a little bit more details? I know I'm just giving out initials, but I think that people should know what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So AGI, I think you might have heard about it in the news recently. It's a hot topic nowadays. AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. So traditionally, the way we've been trying to solve AI has been very narrow and very task-specific, right? Like robots can pick up items from a shelf and put it in a place, right? But that same robot cannot extend that knowledge to do some other tasks. So what AGI stands for is a robot or a machine that can do anything and everything that you ask it, it is almost as intelligent as a human, like in that regard, right? And it has vision capabilities, maybe touch capabilities, robotics capabilities, and it can just function like a humanoid robot. So that is what AGI stands for.
Do you have any recent examples that are happening right now?
So one example that comes to mind is, and it's been there on the internet for a long time, Boston Dynamics, like the robots that they have, they are purported to be similar to AGI. These robots can dance, they can jump, they can do other things. But I would still consider that as very narrowly focused AI. They are robotics, they're really good at robotics, but they don't do other things very well. One example that I really like what I want people to imagine when they think of AGI is from the movie Iron Man, right? Like if you look at Jarvis from the movie Iron Man, that's exactly what an AGI would look like in the future, right? You would have it think through, real-time predictions about, oh, here's a bomb coming, and you have to be here at so and so time. So that's a fun way to look at it, but that's actually what I feel is they got AGI really right there with Jarvis.
When I was thinking of that, I was actually trying to go old school, and I was thinking of Knight Rider, and I was like, that's AGI right there.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, so Microsoft published a research paper about GTP4 and showing how Spark of AGI can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so Before we jump into that, I just wanted to highlight there is some recent developments in AI world which have taken everybody by surprise, including industry people, people who wouldn't have thought maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, things like this were possible. GPT-4 being one of the main such tool that has come into picture that has literally changed everything. Another tool that I want to highlight is Midjourney. Again, a tool that I use very frequently, really photorealistic images just from text prompt. You might have seen, I think just last week there was a news about the Pope playing basketball. And those images were so funny and ridiculous, but you know it's not real, but the realism that they portray is just amazing. And it's also a field of safety that we have to look into. But I think these are a couple of examples of recent changes that have happened or recent innovations that have happened that are sparking this debate about AGI all of a sudden. The other thing I wanted to highlight here was AGI in general is not just robotics, not just humanoid robots, but it also includes a lot of different things, especially advancements in AI that we cannot recognize from where we are right now. So that's what I meant actually. Yeah.
Awesome. So can you tell me
the sparks about? Yeah, forgot about that question. So the recent paper from Microsoft. It's published by an independent research author. His name is Sebastian Wiebeck, and his team. And it's a Microsoft team, not exactly an OpenAI team. And they published a research where they actually evaluated an earlier version of GPT-4. And they determined that GPT-4 has some sparks of AGI. Right? It has reasoning capabilities. If you show it an image of a bunch of balloons and ask it a question like, what would happen if I cut the strings of this balloon? Right? And things like this are hard to find on the internet, and it's not like regurgitating information that it has learned somewhere else, but it is able to reason and say that the balloons will fly now. Or things like, okay, here is a slide, and then what would happen if you put a lot of weight on this side, then it would say that, okay, the other side would come up. Things like that where it understands physical concepts, it understands the world we live in, it understands that there is gravity on Earth, that it understands that, okay, balloons fly, are not explicit things that we would train a machine learning model or a neural network, but these are things that it kind of grasped. So it's definitely an early stage AGI, in my opinion, right? And as well as in the opinion of these Microsoft researchers, definitely it shows a lot of sparks of AGI.
Do you think that ChatGPT is going to change his voice once it inhales helium?
That's an awesome question, definitely. There are actually some robots version of ChatGPT now. I think one of them is called Amika, and that's basically you're asking a question to ChatGPT, but it's instead of a text prompt, you have a robot answering, and it looks a lot more crazier in human in human form basically. But the concept is the same, right? Even if you ask ChatGPT a whole bunch of questions and the answers it gives, it just blows your mind. Like, how does it even know all of this, or how is it able to come up with these ideas that I could not think myself, right? So it's amazing.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask a question more related to your world, right? So the recent advancements in computer vision played a crucial role, right? With progression towards AGI. Can you tell us how it will impact us in the future?
Yeah. So I think AGI, if I break it down, right, so it involves a whole bunch of different areas. One is definitely natural language processing. So you want to be able to understand instructions that people are speaking in human language and then implement those. Another one is robotics. So we talked about Boston Robotics and movements and things like that. So that's another important aspect of AGI. Another field is computer vision, right? So this is sort of to replicate the human senses we have, like eyes, motion, touch, but computer vision being like one of the more important fields here, it's very easy for humans to just look at this room over here and figure out, oh, there is a bar here, people are playing a pool table over there, right? Or when we're driving, it's just so natural for us to drive and not have to worry about so many different calculations. But if you try to translate those into a neural network model, it just becomes a lot harder, right? And some recent advancements in computer vision have been crucial to help drive this technology forward, especially things like full self-driving. If you think about it, like the Tesla car, the stats they announced was they get to make a decision, or their neural network has to make a prediction whether the car is turning left, right, straight, or is it braking every 27 milliseconds, right? So they have to run all of the 8 camera data through their network and have it process it and respond back with results in such a short time. And that real-time nature of vision is definitely a challenge for AGI in general. Right? Tomorrow, if you have a machine-critical robot which is supposed to pick up something, it has to know that in real time and it has to act on it in real time. So that is, that's one of the things for computer vision. It's a field I work in. I'm very excited about it, and some recent advancements have made it much easier for us to deploy really low power models on low power processors. So yeah, it would be interesting to see what the future holds there.
So you mentioned self-driving, and I've been hearing it for many years now.
Yeah.
And I can imagine it's due to energy and power that has to process and how much battery consumption it takes. Yeah. Can you probably dive a little bit into that? If that's the same thing that ChatGPT is going through when it comes to power, water, and energy.
So I think one advantage probably ChatGPT had was, they can grow their network as big as they want and just put it in the cloud. Whereas a Tesla self-driving car, they have to kind of fit all of them in a certain hardware. And they also have to sort of backport it to all the people they've already sold full self-driving 3-4 years ago, right? So it's not like they can upgrade these computers. So they have a lot more restrictions that way, which is why I feel it is going a little more slower. But at the same time, it's I think it's a solvable problem. I mean, if you drive in one of those self-driving cars today, right, you would be amazed how accurate it is able to get it, right? And it's maybe a 15, 16-year-old driving. They will make small, silly mistakes, but it's still a lot more safer than humans driving it, because it's alert all the time, and it's not looking here or there. It's not drunk ever. So there are, and I think I'd say give it maybe 2-3 years. I think full self-driving will be solved in 2-3 years. I think it's that close to the horizon right now.
You heard it today, 2-3 years. Okay, guys. What kind of current barriers to achieve AGI, right? And are there any estimates on the GPU training time and power needed to create such a running model?
So it's very difficult to sort of predict what's going to happen, especially with the field of AGI. A lot of people have a lot of definitions, but I think what I've heard most is when people say AGI, it's more of a humanoid robot form, right? And when will that come into our house, right? When will I have a robot assistant in my house? And I would go on a limb and say that humanoid robots are probably not the first things that would happen in the field of AGI. A lot more other things might happen before the humanoid robot. One example I was thinking of was with ChatGPT especially, and with how some of these diffusion models and image generation models are working right now. Some of the other things that might happen is super personalization, right? If you're reading a book and everybody reads the same book right now, right? You read the same J.K. Rowling Harry Potter book, but you might start seeing books which are a lot more personalized for your taste, with different endings which are maybe suitable to you, generated by AI or regenerated by AI based on a core theme or idea, right? And that would be interesting to see. The music that you listen to, right? You might have Taylor Swift music that's only created for you. Maybe that would happen first before humanoid robots. That's my guess, right? Like there are other very interesting advancements that we haven't even thought about yet, or which amaze our mind. Those would happen first before humanoid robots. Yeah.
I'll be very interested to hear about my Slytherin book that will be coming out soon.
Slytherin book. Yes.
This has been out for a very long time, probably like 1950s. What are your thoughts on the Turing test, its role in evaluating machine intelligence, and where do we stand today?
Yeah, that's again a great segue into this topic, right? On how do we even measure intelligence? How do we, define what is intelligence? How do we again? It just goes back to the root of what human conscience is, right? Like how do we define what is conscious, what is not conscious, who has emotions, who doesn't have emotions, all of these things, right? And if we start getting these more and more advanced robots or AI systems which replicate most of what humans are trying to say, then one day you will say that, oh my God, that's just like my friend would say, right? And you'll start building those bonds with them, like very similar to what's happened in so many movies, right? Like you would have seen it and you kind of empathize with those. With that said, right, like how do you even measure intelligence? And I think we are using a fairly antiquated, at this point, a test called Turing test. It was developed in the 1950s by Alan Turing. I read about it during my undergraduate college years. And the test is, in theory, it is fairly simple, right? So there is a human interviewer. He has to figure out of 10 people, which of them is a robot, right? And he gets to ask the same set of questions to all of these 10 interviewees, and then he doesn't know like who's behind it, and then he figures out, okay, this was a robot. And I would say that barrier is already broken today, right? Today, every day, day in and day out, people or students are submitting essays. The teachers aren't able to figure out, was it from a student or was it from ChatGPT, right? So from a language processing or language model point of view, I think the Turing test is already broken. But again, like it probably dives deeper into more emotional type of questions. And there, you might probably be able to figure out, or you might be able to figure out that this is a robot because its answers are way too good and compared to the student who would have answered it, right? So in a way you can figure out those things, but I would argue that, especially from a language point of view or a natural language processing point of view, we've actually crossed the threshold of what it means to be, what it means to cross that human Turing test. So we need new definitions of what is intelligence or not now. Yeah.
I'm glad ChatGPT didn't exist when I was in high school. I would have been cheating all day, to be honest. Let's not lie.
Well, I tell you, like, I was thinking the same thing too, like, oh my God, such tools, if they existed in my childhood, it would be so much fun. Then I realized that I have 2 kids now who also are learning all of these things. So it is, it's a double-edged sword, actually.
Awesome. Continuing on, what are your thoughts on AI alignment and safety?
This is actually a hot topic, right? AI alignment and safety of AI systems. Again, alignment basically means, like, are we going to be evolving with these AGI systems or AI systems in a way that they are going to be helpful for us, right? They are utilitarian. They are developed by humans to help humans, and not like AI system which gets these delusions of grandeur or gets this power grab feelings and starts, throwing things disarray.
Creating its own languages?
Or creating its own languages, or give it a lot more control than what would happen, right? So there is always that question, and it's difficult to answer that, but I feel like there has to be a lot more oversight, both from government, both from industry organizations, in order to help define what is acceptable, right? How do we align AI systems much better? So it's a matter of continuous discussions, debate, right? We should not shut it down. Recently I heard Microsoft shut down their AI safety team, and not a good idea. They just acquired like a whole bunch of OpenAI and all of these new technologies, and shutting down AI safety systems doesn't chime in well there. So again, governments also have to step in a lot, right? Especially regulations around how do we train these models, regulations around what these models are supposed to do, how do we avoid bias in these models. Let's say if you have an AI system that's doing recruiting, right, and if it goes by biases, then we'll have a social justice issue at our hand, right? How do these AI systems avoid that type of bias? And again, I'm not saying that these problems are not solvable. They are solvable, but there needs to be involvement and serious debate from government and individual organizations along these lines.
Thanks. Another question, and then last question, and I'll go out to feed out the questions to the public, right? And I'll step off the hot seat, and we'll let him take the driver's seat, all right? What are your thoughts on the future of the workforce? And I actually, if you don't answer it, I have something to add to that as well. So.
Yeah, no, this is a topic on everybody's mind. It's giving a lot of people sleepless nights, and I don't have a good answer here, or I don't have a happy answer here. It's going to change things, especially the way AI is going, AGI development is going. It's going to change a lot of things. It's going to create new industries, so new jobs. New areas in which jobs would be available, but at the same time it would also shut down a lot of existing type of jobs, especially, again, I am a software engineer and this keeps me up at night. Software engineering is on the chopping block. So you can see the type of answers ChatGPT is producing, and they are really good. They are exceedingly good that I would want to use that instead of hiring another engineer. And it's a real question that a lot of other industry leaders would also have. And software engineering is on the chopping block. A lot of copywriting, a lot of jobs in marketing space are also on the line. But I'm hoping that this would also open up a lot of new markets and adjacent opportunities, especially in entrepreneurs, right? So you see all of these new technologies. How do you make use of it? What do people want from it? So you build a new thing, you provide a new service. I think entrepreneurship is going to pick up, and a lot of new set of companies will be formed this decade. Yeah.
So ChatGPT is actually very confident. Like you can ask it a question, what are the next jobs that you're going to take over? And it'll give you a list of like 25 jobs that it's going to take over in the next 2 years. But what I'm very curious about right now is like there's a gaming company in China that literally had its CEO become AI, and is taking all their direction from an AI CEO, and they're being profitable. So, yeah. What do you take from that?
There was a recent poll on Twitter where somebody asked, what are the next set of jobs AI will take? And the poll had 4 answers: software engineers, designers, content writers, CEOs. The majority of people answered CEOs, right? Because the decision you're making as a CEO level are more data-driven, and you need to be objective, right? You cannot go with your feeling. And in a way, it makes sense, but there are a lot of other things that CEOs usually end up doing, especially like, I'm not a CEO, but I do a lot of similar stuff as in technical role. Like every day is like super different for me. And I use ChatGPT and a lot of these tools, but I feel like there is always that hustle mentality that I have to come up with, and that would be harder to replicate in AI. So I probably don't agree with that statement as much. It's not like as crystal clear. It's not as driven out that role like CEO, CTO roles, but yeah, no, you're right. Like when it comes to like taking decisions based on data, based on no biases, then I think they should rely on some of these AI solutions. Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
These are the questions that I have, but I hope the rest of the people here have more questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm going to get off the hot seat. You take the wheel.
Awesome.
And it's all on you, brother. All right?
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, man.
It's okay. So where do you draw a line between humanity and AI?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, right? So there is...
Will you have AI babies now in future? Or AI girlfriends in future?
AI girlfriends in future. So there is the root of this question, right, sort of arises from like how do you define consciousness, right? How do you define what is a human?
How probably why do you need AI? Simple.
Sure, yeah. No, that is also there.
How does it help humanity as a whole?
Yeah.
Is it helping or is it like going against humanity?
Yeah, so like let me take the first part of that, right? Like how do you define what is consciousness? What do you say is human, right? I used to watch this British TV show, and one of the things I sort of stuck in my head all the time was it talked about emergent properties, right? And what is an emergent property is, you don't see it naturally, like intelligence or consciousness. It's not like one thing, but when you put together trillions of neurons and in a complex structure like the brain and how they fire and how they interact with each other, right? And something emerges out of it, right? And that thing they call as emergent, right? The consciousness is emergent property. How are we different from, let's say, apes or other species that came before us, right? Because we had the right set of neurons that started tingling, and just consciousness simply emerged after that. And one of the predictions, again, this TV show was, I need to look it up, but maybe 5-6 years ago, and they predicted like you build a large enough neural network and consciousness will emerge, right? And I do feel the same way, right? Like if you're not very religious, if you're looking at it rationally, I would feel the same way that consciousness would emerge in a system like this. And the second question you asked was, why AI? Why don't we stop AI right now?
Because there's a petition signed by everyone, including Elon Musk,
Yes.
to stop at ChatGPT 4.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
getting too dangerous.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that there are petitions, but it's not going to happen, right? Like if we don't do it, China will do it. If they don't do it, like somebody else will do it, right? It's the same thing with nuclear race, right? People are going to develop, and people are going to find out how things work. People are going to, the development is going to happen. So it's better that we are in the driving seat there versus.
Do you think it will be used as another tool for World War III kind of a thing?
Another tool for no, I don't think so. There are like very minuscule chances for AI being super bad and like eradicating all of human civilization, but I'm not into that camp. I don't think it is going to be as devastating. I think it is actually going to open up a whole new economy of new services and productivity that was going to come out, new set of jobs. Everybody is like twice as productive with systems like this, right? So there are going to be new opportunities, and I'm very optimistic in that regard. But I completely agree with you. The safety alignment issue with the AI is a challenge. That's why there needs to be more discussions. There needs to be more transparency around these areas.
So my last question will be on humanity again. So I employ 200 people who work for me today and we do live chat. They are humans, they are live, and they connect with their end user.
Correct.
They build relationship with them. And we have always been against AI as a policy of the company because these 200 people need jobs.
Correct.
What happens if ChatGPT take over and now everything is done by an AI tool?
Correct.
My company is going to be low profitable.
Correct.
But what about these 200 people? Who is accountable for it?
Yeah, they're gonna lose their jobs. Yeah, or again, if it's not that you're gonna say maybe let's say okay, I'm gonna keep my company policy. I'm gonna keep these 200 people employed, and I'm gonna continue to serve. But like maybe a competitor company would come up which would just use ChatGPT and solve the same problem that you're solving, and they're going to be able to do that like I don't know maybe half the cost, and they're going to win out, right? So it's the symptom of the time, right? Like these things are going to evolve. Whether there's no stopping it, like whether you try to stop it or not, it's not going to happen.
So in your company, Harsh, do you provide customer support?
We do not.
Why?
Like customer support, as in phone call support, that type of thing. Yeah.
After you sell a product, what
No,
happens after that is customer support? Do you provide it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we don't serve like as a customer support company per se, but like we are a tech company. We do provide customer support for all the things we sell. Yeah.
So is it done by AI or is it done by humans?
It's done by humans, but I'll give you an example of my company actually. So we recently, once a lot of these things started coming out, right? I had like a overall company-wide meeting, and got everybody ChatGPT subscriptions. I got everybody Midjourney subscriptions for people who needed it, and said that, hey, there are these tools. They make your life easier, right? I want you to be 2x productive based on these, right? And that has worked out wonderfully for us so far, right? Again, I don't know how the future would look like, but I don't want to be standing in the way of progress. I don't want to say that, hey, I'm going to do things traditional way, because it's not going to last. It's not sustainable, right? I just want everybody to be in our company to be more aware of these tools and use it, right? Instead of saying like, oh, I can do all of this on my own. You can do in half the time you can do just as well. So you might as well use those tools.
So if given an option as a CTO of Visionify, will you replace all the employees of your organization?
No. So as I mentioned, right, so it's not going to be, at least in the near future, it's not going to be AI replacing.
If the technology is ready for you to deploy today.
Yeah.
You have the option to fire everyone today and just deploy AI. Fire your CEO, fire your
right, and just deploy the AI.
So can I answer that too?
Yeah.
An experience that I had.
So I worked for a utilities billing company in Santa Ana years ago. It was a national water and power. We had 150 employees that worked in the call center. We watched them building the server room, and we watched them wrap up the build, and they laid off 150 customer service people in one day. 2 weeks later, the system glitched, and all the calls went to all the phones. So they called back half of the people, and they said, hey, can you get it in here? We need you to work the phones again. A few weeks later, they fired them again. And so the rest of us are sitting around going, oh shit, what's gonna happen to our jobs?
Yeah.
And my supervisor, Letitia, was like, if you're done with your work, just sit there and act like you're busy. And I was like, this is such bullshit. So I went to Barnes & Noble, this is how long ago it was, and I researched research methodologies, forums for research, and I'd never written a proposal, so how do I write a proposal? I circulated the proposal, and ultimately I became advisor to the president, and then subsequently the next president when he came in. And ultimately, they kept a small staff to handle some of the people. But they did let go of the majority of people because the system did do a good job. It just needed to get up to speed. And it was humans making the decisions to lay people off, and those were bad human decisions. Ultimately, it settled down, and it's got an automated system now. And they do offset that with other people. I had a question.
Yep.
So as quickly as people are finding great uses of ChatGPT and all its variations and all the different cool programming that you can build on top of it and around it and to manipulate it, as quickly you're getting people that are anti it, and they've got all the reasons why this shit will not work. Which one's going to win? And how much is that going to impact productivity?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, actually. And I think it's on a lot of people's mind at this point, right? When you see something which is, able to generate such, good output, let's take GPT-4, for example, right? Like well-reasoned output. And then you'll have to ask your question, like, why am I not going to use that? Why do I have to use a human, like, to answer your question? But that question has a flaw, right? Like, it is, at least right now where the AI stands, it's humans using those AI tools. And the way I would see at least next few years progressing is an increase in productivity based off of that, right? We'll see like 2x, 3x times productivity But there is definitely a chance, and people are already talking about it. It's called an AI recession, which is a recession caused by AI because a lot of indiscriminate decisions around hiring and firing that people might end up doing after that, right? Which is bad, right? Like we have to figure out all of these things that we are developing is for the betterment of human civilization as a whole, right? And we don't want to go about it indiscriminately. And I do agree with you there that we have to have a very thorough talk about what it means to have AI. Are we going to use these tools more in a utilitarian fashion versus helping it drive the entire company, right? Where do you draw that line exactly? So I think those are interesting topics that we should continue to have a conversation on. Yeah.
You were giving an example of Tesla. Tesla doesn't even drive in autopilot. Forget about routes and
Yeah. I think Tesla, again, there is I have full self-driving like on my Tesla, and I literally drove from Lafayette to here with that, right? Like maybe at 1 or 2 point I had to like disengage and take it over. And my feeling is, I kind of look at it much more optimistically, right? So next 2 to 3 years, I'd say the challenges that they have right now, they will solve it. Yeah. So it's not there yet. I agree. Like there are some places where it is, there are like these phantom braking conditions, or there are conditions where it merges where there is somebody behind us. All of these cases are there, but overall, I think what they've even now what they've proven is it's like twice as safe as a human driving it, right? In terms of the number of accidents per millions of miles driven. I think in a couple of years they will reach there. The thing is, it improves, right? Over a period of time, the models get better, it improves, and it's a continuous positive improvement. So, yeah.
So I would like to say something regarding the human aspect of things. I think that it's not that it's going to be the end. I think it's very positive because it's going to give humans an opportunity to actually be creative, right? And we're so involved in our role that we don't understand. We were born to be creative, so having this time and understanding to use these tools, kind of like what Harsh did with his company, is, hey, grab these tools, play with them. Not hiding them from their people, is giving them an opportunity to, first of all, do their job faster, and then also giving them accessibility to get creative in a different way, right? It's just kind of the little aspect that I wanted to jump on. Mm-hmm.
bigger question here is how is the government going to play a role?
Yeah.
What policies the government needs to form? Because if there are 10,000 people jobless outside on the street,
Correct.
AI is not going to come and save you.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And
And that is probably the future. What we're looking at.
right.
If you're creating more jobless people outside,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
need to feed themselves. How are they going to do it? The
So,
government going to give them funds? What is the policy? You don't have a policy.
Yeah.
You're bringing technology. You're bringing everything that we need.
so I have a question about AGI.
Sure.
So you said that ChatGPT is able to recognize that a balloon would go up. Would it be able to figure out at what rate it would go up and in what direction? So like it doesn't have other information, but it could. Do you think it'll come through from it, understand, like deriving the laws of physics, or like how does it become general?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question. And so I was actually listening to a podcast by Ilya Sutskever. He's one of the research scientists at OpenAI. And the way he explained it, right, how these transformer models learn, especially around natural language processing. So you start with a neural network that is big enough size that can take words and understand that, okay, these words belong to English. I can do like simple things like sentence completions. I can do simple things like spell correction with a decent enough model size, right? And you give it a little bit more neurons, and you give it a little bit more connection and keep training it, and then it understands maybe a meaning of a paragraph, like not even like underline. Just the syntactical meaning of it, but more of a semantic meaning of a paragraph. Give it a lot more data, then it kind of generalizes it a little bit more in terms of, okay, why things are happening in a certain way. Again, they say even the chief scientist of OpenAI says it's a black box, right? It's not very visible how things like this work. It's a black box. Very similar human analogy to human brain, right? We don't know how human brain works, how these trillions of neurons firing and connecting with each other create the sense of consciousness or understanding and memory, right? But at the same time, we know that it is a trillion neuron there, just like replicate it, right? So that's what OpenAI has done, like just replicate what human brain would have done, right? Just put more and more neurons and then like larger networks, basically. And the interesting thing about it is at some point, it understands not only like how to do translations and how to get like meaning from a paragraph, but at the same time, it actually becomes more generative in nature, right? It can help write passages. So that's what GPT-4 is at this point. And what's the future potential for that and where it might go from here? It's, again, like very open to interpretation, but I think we would see a lot of advances in that regard in the next couple of years, especially. Yeah.
And one other question is, so something like Midjourney takes images that a lot of people have put in a lot of creative thought to create and figures out how to create other images based on a prompt.
Correct.
Right? But imagine a world where people have stopped creating images because AI does it much better, right? And then the AI is just like, what is the AI sort of an average of what other people have created, or is it innovating? Is it coming up with new things?
The current network architectures, I would say, is an average of what humans are creating, right? So it definitely relies on the training data, and it needs new training data, right? Recently, I think Quora and Stack Overflow, both of them just disabled answers from AI, right? They have it in their terms of policies saying that we don't want OpenAI to like scrape our answers, train their networks. We don't want answers from OpenAI fed back, right? And again, I think a lot of such policies would come into picture. The interesting thing here is like, you know, OpenAI was trained by a lot of these Quora and Stack Overflow answers, right? And now I think both Quora and Stack Overflow are probably going to go down because everybody is going to use ChatGPT and things like that to get their answers, not go back there. So it's sort of like a cannibalistic model, like, you know, you're built off of something, but you're killing that thing now. Yeah.
So out in Vegas is kind of the Elon's one of three the space shuttles that have been to space, and he's trying to consolidate the AI knowledge. Right now, AI tends to be siloed. Microsoft's got their AI, and so it's building up because of its popularity, but it's just data. And if it's siloed, then the data is restricted to the access and the questions and its ability to learn. He's looking at consolidating it and then has a profit model. I think he's probably got a good chance because he's just got the money for it. But what are your thoughts on the consolidation of data so that data can learn from data and that way it's not siloed? And how much faster would that be?
Yeah, I think it's already fast enough, right? Like we are seeing models that are getting developed between 3.5, GPT 3.5 and 4. I think the difference was a matter of months. So we might see like GPT 5 very soon. So it's all, again, controlled by the same company, whereas opening these data sets might open it up to, you know, faster training. But at the same time, like if you look at it from a national security perspective, if you look at it from, okay, if you open up all of these data, like maybe China would be able to get to it first, or they might be able to create misinformation spreading AI bot, right? So all of those are questions for which I would say like probably not open source data. And at this point, they're treating all of this data as intellectual property, right? And the funny thing, or not a funny thing, but the thing is, a lot of those data is like literally scraped from the internet. That data belongs to Getty Images, or that data belongs to Stack Overflow. But there is a good set of data that OpenAI has scraped, and they're not going to give it to anybody. They're not going to even tell like what data we used for training.
Oh, sorry. Go on. You have a follow-up? So I have actually two questions.
Sure.
First one is, have you seen the movie Hidden Figures?
I haven't actually.
So I'd recommend it. Has anybody else seen it? Hidden Figures. It's about women in NASA who nobody ever heard about, who are the human computers. So the reason I bring it up is when I look at ChatGPT and I look at that, the best example I had in that movie was they bought in the original IBM computers to replace these women. And but it took them, the computer took up the entire room. This was like, early 1950s. So the computer took up the whole room. The people they were setting up the computers didn't know how to actually optimize or operate the computer. So one of the women went away to the library, learned Fortran programming herself, came in, and became the person who ran the computer lab.
Correct.
And so when I think of, and you may disagree with this, but when I think of ChatGPT, that's what I think. In terms of the people who will succeed are the people who will learn how to utilize it or use it in their day jobs, and they're kind of like similar, some of the things you were talking about where you give subscriptions to your employees. That's how I see it, as some of these functions, whether it's copywriting or programming, for example. Yes, it'll take over 80% of what they do, but if 80% of what you do is repeatable, then shouldn't you be doing something else anyway?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I completely agree with you here, right? There are so many such examples in the past, right, where a new technology comes in, it takes away some jobs, but at the same time, it opens up new industries and new avenues that were unheard of before. I was hearing like one other example of a film advancement. Like people used to edit films before by literally cutting them together and putting them together, and somebody came up with a software to do all of that. I think it was Real Networks, right? And when they did that, the interesting part was, okay, all the jobs which were involving editing of films and cutting them and taping them together, they were gone. But the editing industry in general grew in size after that, because now we could edit a lot more movies, right? And now we could make a lot more movies, right, in general. So I think new opportunities would open up in different areas when some of them are closed. But especially, I don't know how exactly that's going to play out, right, with ChatGPT, what are the new opportunities would open up. But that's so far been true over the last century. So I'm thinking like something else like that would happen. So
Yeah. And then, sorry. Yeah, second question, sorry. So following up on the ChatGPT opportunity, they've just released their open APIs for integrating in and out of ChatGPT. Have you considered what kind of opportunities that might open up from an industry business perspective?
Absolutely. So actually, we are building some products which are using GPT-4 APIs already. We've also requested for open GPT-4 APIs with image support because we are more of a vision company, and I think image plus the text support would be interesting. But you're already seeing a lot of different applications which are coming up with GPT and Midjourney and putting them together. I'll give you an example. There's an iPhone app, it's called Lensa, and you can like take a few selfies of yourself, and it would create, using Stability AI, it would create a whole bunch of new images for you, which are like super cool actually. I tried it for myself, and I really like myself in those images. So like a superhero image, an image with like fire coming behind me, all of those things, right? And these are sort of personalizable experiences, like, you will have your own experience, I'll have my own experience, and I think this was not there before, right? There wasn't a market before for, people to appear as superheroes in front of just themselves, right? So these are all the personalizable market opportunities which would open up. GPT-4 APIs, I think the other things would come up in the same, like a lot of applications are also coming up. They're called AutoGPT, which uses GPT APIs, but also combines it with rest of the, scheduling and real-time search, and then build like an end-to-end process around it. So like, maybe things like, I want to book a flight from here to New York, right? Instead of going and entering those things, you just ask Siri that, and then that would, create a flight for you based on your preferences and things like that. So I think, yeah, it would come up. You'd see a lot of them already happening, but maybe in the next few months, you would see a lot of those things coming into real life production use.
We have 2 more questions,
Okay.
and then we'll get going with the rest of the event. All right?
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Hey Harsh, plug for you, one of my oldest friends and such an amazing human being.
Thank you, Sapna.
You and I are parents of elementary school kids. What is your take on how much ChatGPT should influence our kids' education and in what way? And what do you think about esoteric learning versus learning using, an AI bot?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sapna. And thank you for being here, first of all. Sapna and I, fun fact, we both joined Qualcomm. That was our first job on the same day. And we were in the same team, and we've been friends for close to 18 years now. So, yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for being here, Sapna. To answer your question, I agree with you. There is always a risk of, kids using ChatGPT to submit their essay answers. There is even a South Park episode about it, where all they do is, "Hey, dude, ChatGPT," and then just, even responding back to text, they use ChatGPT. And it's a future that I definitely envision. I don't want it to be for my kids, but at the same time, the technology itself is already evolving in ways which can help a lot of kids, right? So there is a Khan Academy app which uses GPT-4, which is basically like a very patient teacher for your kids, right? So let's say it's already prompted to not give answers. Right? It's already prompted to help the student come up with answers. So tools like that would be a lot more helpful for helping understand how things are implemented or helping build how things are implemented. So overall, I still feel it is the right direction, but I agree, if the kids start using ChatGPT out of its own, then it's hard to figure those things out. So there needs to be some balance, but I think some of the tools that are coming out are going to be helpful for education. I also try to give this example, actually. I myself did not know a lot of physics, a lot of topics related to physics and math, even after I graduated. But I recently started watching a lot of YouTube videos, and the way they explain it just made a lot more sense, more intuitive visual sense. And I use that a lot, and I feel like it's a lifelong learning thing that I can embark on with these new technologies. So I always am open to trying out new things, right? So
sounds like our South Asian upbringing. My husband can also say YouTube videos are the way to go.
Yeah,
but yeah,
exactly.
thank you so much for your answer. And I think I'm giving it to your daughter for her question, and I think this is the last question of the night.
Awesome.
So, technology helps with our jobs, right? Imagine doing your job without technology. Do you think that technology could actually take over a job?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ritu. And I think that's a question on a lot of people's mind, actually. Can technology take over our jobs? And, to be honest, some of the technology is developed to help us do our jobs, right? And sometimes what happens is the technology is so good that we realize that, okay, we don't need this type of job anymore. But at the same time, always a new job opens up. That's what has happened in the past. I'm very optimistic, new fields of research would come up, new ways to think about things would come up. We'll maybe have cure for cancer. We may dream about going to Mars, right? So all of these previously unimaginable ideas and more broader looking ideas which were previously thought impossible because it was so tedious to do. A lot of that tediousness is taken out by technology, and it would just help open up a lot more opportunities, basically. So there will be more jobs. Don't worry about it. You'll get a job.
Awesome. I love the last question, the fact that it was your daughter.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Everyone, thank you for being here. We have more drink tickets, and also we have both of the golf booths open. So if anybody wants to go and swing, we have some charcuterie going on, snack, swing some golf balls. We'll be here till 8 o'clock. Thank you for being here. This is CTO Talk. Harsh, thank you.
Jonathan.
This was amazing.
Being here.
I think that we're going to continue recording our podcast out of this golf course. So
Thank you so much for helping organize this, to you and to Lulu and all the Arcus Nexus team. And thank you all for being here and asking very insightful questions. Some of them I do know the answers to, or I can think, but some of them are definitely more profound, right? But I want to leave on an optimistic note, right, and not be just very worried about it. I'm thinking like it's a fun time to be alive, right? If you think about, do I want to be alive in any other time in the history? But I would say like, okay, now is the right time, because like we are on the verge of creating machines which are, as intelligent or maybe soon more intelligent than humans, which is a huge technological achievement. And I think it's a fun time to be alive, and I'm very optimistic for the future. And you wish all the best. Yeah.
I'm going to be happy as long as they don't hit the reset button.
I don't.
We're good. All right, guys.
All right,
Have
thank
a
you,
wonderful
Jonathan.
night, and thank you. Hopefully you enjoy.